נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש לדור ודור נגיד גודלך.
Shalom. Before I start my Torah drash today, I would like to say thank you to my congregational family that has been so supportive and so kind and thoughtful during this period of Shloshim. Shloshim is that period of 30 days between the passing of a loved one until the end of that first or that second period of mourning within Judaism. My sister Susan passed away 3 weeks ago, and I have one more week of Shloshim, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the blessing of my congregation and my circle of friends who have been there for me. Our Torah portion this week is Ve'et Hanan. It's the second portion of the book of Deuteronomy. Now, there are very significant passages in this Sedra. There is a repetition of the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments, having appeared for the first time in the book of Shemot, appears for the second time in this Torah portion with some minor variations. And I'm sure Torah groups this Shabbos morning all over the world will be comparing and contrasting the two versions of the Ten Commandments. We also have in chapter 6 of this week's Torah portion that very eloquent, that very beautiful declaration of our Jewish faith in one God. It's the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Those are words that we say in the morning, we say in the evening. Those are words that we want to have on our lips at the moment that we pass from this life to the next. Or if we're unable to say those words ourselves at that time, that at least someone around us will gently whisper those words in our ears. Well, I would like to point out a passage at the very beginning of this week's Torah portion that isn't as monumental as the Ten Commandments, that isn't as theologically charged as the Shema is in chapter 6. And yet it has a little bit of wisdom for life. And let me show you what I mean. Let me read for you the first few verses in the Hebrew and then in the English. Ve'et Hanan el Adonai be'et hahi lemor. Adonai Elohim ata hachilota laharot et avdecha et godlecha ve'ed yadcha hachazaka asher mi el b'shamayim uva'aretz asher yaseh chamaasecha v'chigvurotecha ve'ebara na ve'ere et ha'aretz hatova asher be'ever hayorden ha'har hatov hazeh v'ha'levanon v'yitaber Adonai bi lemanchem v'lo shama elai Vayomer Adonai Elai, Rav lach, al tosef daber alai, od b'davar hazeh. Now, Moses began last week's Torah portion and carried on throughout that portion a review of Jewish history up to that point. And here he comes to the place or the event in which he had struck a rock to bring forth water, and he was only commanded to speak to the rock, and for that reason, according to tradition, he was not allowed to go into the promised land. So look what he says here. I pleaded with the Eternal at that time, saying, O eternal God, you who let your servants see the first works of your greatness and your mighty hand, you whose powerful deeds no God in heaven or on earth can equal. Let me, I pray, cross over and see the good land on the other side of the Jordan, that good hill country and the Lebanon. But the Eternal was wrathful with me on your account and would not listen to me. The Eternal One said to me, Enough! Never speak to me of this matter again. What we see here is very interesting. As I mentioned before, Moses was not allowed to go into the promised land because he had struck a rock. It was at a time when there wasn't water for the Israelites to drink, and God had simply commanded him to speak to the rock, but he hits the rock, showing a lack of faith. And for this reason, we're told he wasn't allowed into the promised land. Now, what does he do here? He blames the people. Now, certainly, it was no picnic leading the Israelites. They complained and they rebelled against him, and certainly Moses, who had a temper problem, we see evidence of this in his life, could take it no more, and he took out his frustration on the rock. He lost his cool. But what does he do here? He blames the Jewish people. He says, you made me angry. You caused me not to be able to go into the promised land. And how does God respond? God says, enough. Never speak to me of this matter again. What did God mean by this? Enough. Don't speak of this anymore. Could it be that God was telling Moses not to blame others for his own shortcomings? The thing I like about Moses, especially the way he's portrayed in the Torah, is that he's very human. This is a tendency I think we all have. We all, at some time or another, refuse to take responsibility for our own behavior, and we blame others. It reminds me of the story of the woman who goes to her therapist and complaining about her husband. She says, he never takes me dancing, and he knows that I love dancing. Why doesn't he take me dancing? And she had a few more sessions with the therapist, and it was revealed that the problem was hers, not his. She had a phobia of dance floors, and she was subverting any opportunity for her to go dancing with her husband. We do this sort of thing. This passage to me is a subtle message teaching us to take responsibility for our own foibles and failures and our own weaknesses, to take responsibility and to not blame others. Well, I hope you will read the Torah portion and come to your own conclusions. Shabbat Shalom.
Sing out to God, the maker of all. pure and strong. Let all of creation from mountain to sea